Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We've got a full class today, so please scrunch into the middle. Make room for your neighbors and friends. All right. Good morning. Hope you got your caffeine or other. We're going to have a good day. All right. So I don't surprise anyone. Just make sure we're all on the same page here. We're planning on talking about configuring e-filing using JusticeWeb, right? Everyone who's in here? All right, so first thing is, if you go out to training.newdawn.com, and right up here in the conference materials, you'll find the materials for the class today and tomorrow. Or, sorry, this class and the next one. Right here. Okay, so e-filing using JusticeWeb. So that's some of the material I put together that we will be looking at today. So examples of how to set those pages up. And with this one, I even illustrated 2 business rules that we put together for this class. So first, I guess second of all, let's talk about is e-filing or is JusticeWeb right for you? What can you do with JusticeWeb? And I love this when I hit my little button to do the slideshow. It transfers this, so give me 1 second to get it back. Alright. Oh, what's that? Alright. So, what does JusticeWeb do? JusticeWeb. Jeremy Gledhill, my name is Jed. Jeremy Gledhill is the other one that does the public and ePublic and reports. So JusticeWeb can do a number of different things. So anything with an E in front of it except eCourt, that is JusticeWeb. Okay, so eView, this replaces the old JusticeWeb View product that we had. What do you do with this? You expose reports online. That would be if you had a kiosk in your office and you wanted to show the court calendar. You wanted to show the next events that were coming up. You wanted to show the arraignments or the hearings or something like that. This would be your guy. Okay, that would be eView. You can also provide public access with this. So you can put up reports, allow people to search on a specific person's name or for a case numbers, that type of stuff. Okay, then they can get in and you configure what the public can see from your cases. Okay? So that is eView. E-filing. E-filing. 2 concepts with this. Attorneys need to file documents on cases. So that is uploading information, case information to an existing case. Okay? So that could be documents, notes. You can even schedule events, so you can turn this over to your attorneys. You can open this up to the public if you need. We're going to look at some specific examples of this today in our class. E-discovery. Okay, the concept for e-discovery was specifically for prosecutors compiling and needing to expose like a zip file of documents. With Discovery, you can also expose individual documents from your filing cabinet. The concept here is, it's got to be in your filing cabinet. Okay? Either way, it's coming from your filing cabinet. But you can allow people to pay for that discovery. Pay to download and access those documents. And e-payments. That's the next class we'll be talking about today. So with this, you need to allow people to pay their bills online. Maybe they have recurring payments. You have a payment schedule or a pay plan set up for them. Or you want to allow people to pay their traffic tickets online. So we have 2 different ways to access that information or expose that information, public payments and private payments. So if that's what you're trying to accomplish, JusticeWeb will work for that. JusticeWeb is not an interface. It does not grab information, a bulk of information from your database, and transfer that to another system. It does not grab a bulk of information from another system and import that into your JustWare. It is not designed for that. This is offloading your data entry from your court or your agency and allowing somebody else to do that work for you. Okay? It's outsourcing on American soil. All right. So this is eFiling. eFiling. So if you access this information here, PDF comes up. That PDF has just a couple of things at the beginning. So let's talk, I don't know what this guy is. Yeah. All right. Here's our objectives for the class. Okay? So that's where we're going to go. I appreciate your comments and questions. Learn how to set up e-filing in JusticeWeb. We're going to learn how to create and order those pages. How to receive case submissions in JustWare. Review. When we have a submission, how does that translate into JustWare? Because that's what we're doing, right? We're just offloading from our clerks, our people, entering the information into JustWare. We're exposing those elements by the web, allowing somebody to log in and browse. How to translate into JustWare. Learn how to set up different payment options. Set up notifications, permissions, and we've got some business rules set up to show you that you interact with the tools that you're used to using in JustWare. Notification templates, business rules, default or agents, case numbers, agencies, involvements, all those things that you've learned and practiced in JustWare. We've got to apply those in JusticeWeb. All right? So that's where we're going. Anybody surprised by that? So, first thing is, there is a queue structure built into JusticeWeb. Okay, so if anybody used our old Justice Broker product, there was also a queue in there. What that does is it allows you to stop whatever somebody is submitting so that you can review it before it comes in and is active in your system. It provides that mechanism for you. So we'll look at the queue, and I've got some of these, we call them requests. Okay, Jeremy Gledhill, if you went to his class, he calls them buttons. They are requests. That is a web term. If you were to look at it up in our help guide, you would search for requests. Okay? You would search for requests. So we have a queue. We'll look at that. Design considerations. Number one, I love a blank page. I will create a blank page every time. All I do is I create a generic page, it's blank. I leave it, it's labeled blank. And then I just use that in multiple workflows. We'll see that, okay? You'll see that as we go through this. Other pages like terms and conditions or I agree to terms and conditions. They can be useful. You can make them very generic, right? You can provide hyperlinks on there that go to other places, so you can just give a brief overview. I like those. You can share those on multiple, we call those the request pages. And then you can include those in line. Okay, so there's an example of what that looks like. Fines, fees, they can be configured for any workflow. These are recorded in the non-collectibles snap-in in JustWare. They're not financials. Okay, financials are reserved for fines and fees on the case. So fees from JusticeWeb, since it's not something that was part of the sentence, do not show up there. So they would show up in your non-collectible financials. Okay, so we're going to go through, we'll start very simple. First thing we're going to do is we're going to look at e-filing from the perspective of, I already have an existing case, and I just want to put new documents or information on that case. All right? So we're going to start very simple, and then we're going to expand these concepts from there. So the rest of this document, you can take this home with you. It illustrates what we'll be looking at. It gives the screenshots of the results. There's even some review questions to see if you can answer those. Okay? So this would be a good refresher when you go home. And then down at the bottom, I've got a couple of the business rules. So just some tidbits of information in there, and then get down here. Business rules down at the bottom. Just a couple of simple ones. Gone. I must have been excited about this class. Putting all this stuff together. All right, feed configuration. It talks about how to set those up, as well as notification templates. So we'll talk about notifications, but I'm asked frequently, hey, what if I just wanted to send a default message to people? Can you just give me canned text that I can send out to them? Yep, and I'm showing you 3 examples right here. All right, so it's in your documentation. Business rules. Renat obligations. We're going to do that for civil. I'll show the civil or traffic case where we do that. Can we send an email saying, hey, we're waiting for payment? Yes, we can. So I've got an example of that business rule set up right here as well. All right, so that's in your documentation. Let's jump in and look at this fun little toy we've got. So this is JusticeWeb. By default, there's some text here. You can replace this text. You control that in your configuration. That's not the purpose of my class here. We want to get in and look at this filing. So when we log in to JusticeWeb, you must have an account, and you can find this information in our help guide. If you don't see the help guide in your JustWeb help menu, that's because you don't have JusticeWeb installed. So contact Jeremy Gledhill or Ben Stocks and they'll help you out. All right, but there is a help guide in here. Now I want you guys to know that there is more information than I can give you today in this class in that help guide. It is fantastic. Spend time with those things. They're awesome. Lots of little tidbits. All right, so we are going to look at filing an extension or a petition. So when we log into JusticeWeb, we're shown our active cases. There are requirements for cases to show up here. They must have a status with the master code of active. Okay, so in JusticeWeb, that is a requirement. The next requirement is I must be involved in that case. And that involvement must be allowed to see cases in JusticeWeb. Once that's there, we've got a case. We've got to work with this case. So they tried to make this somewhat tablet friendly. So you see these menus. I can also click on the title and it will give me the same work with this case and some other details. All right, so in here I've got 3, these are requests. They're set up where I can change the case status. I like this just for testing. We're going to look at this file a petition first. So file a petition. On the file a petition, let's look at what makes that request show up. So here I've got different case types. Here's the file and extension. You give it a code, a description. The description is what shows up on the web. Then a specific code type. And we have different types of requests. Each of these has a specific purpose. If you have a question about those, the help guide is your friend. Okay? We're going to specifically be looking at the case-specific requests and insert case requests today. This one is a case-specific. That means that that request is going to attach itself to a case. That's where it shows up. It's case-specific. It's got to be attached to a case. We expose it to a web server, and we have a default queued status. This one is set to queued. The approval document. We have what's called a payload. When somebody fills information out on the web form, we capture that and in JustWeb, they call that the payload. Okay? And we're going to take that XML document and store it in the filing cabinet. And we know when we store documents in the filing cabinet, we need a document type, right? So this is going to be our document type of that file in the filing cabinet. We've got an approval event that really only works for requests. Then we can send an email. We can send the payload in an email to whoever's logged in, if we would like. I don't have that checked. We also can show a summary of that payload. I do not have that one checked for this flow. Let's see, we're filing an extension. I wanted the petition. Here's petition, same kind of a thing. This one is set to auto approve. I am showing the summary, and we're adding inconvenience fee. We are not adding inconvenience fee. This one will be free. All right. So that's what we've got set up. All right, so file a petition. This one has 3 pages. So we have a terms and conditions, we have the upload a case petition, and a blank page that I'm using in there. With this one, page 1 goes to the next page of page 2. I have 2 page 2s. So because I have 2 page 2s, I'm going to be presented with options. Which page 2 do you want to go to? So JusticeWeb will just put that on the form. So let's go out and look and see what that looks like. When we access File a Petition, we go out and JusticeWeb talks to your JustWare database and says, hey, I know you got some pages configured. What do those look like? This one, here's my terms and conditions page. I've got some basic HTML on there, so I have paragraph tags around here and around this one. I got an anchor tag here, an href. Right? It takes me out to terms and conditions. This actually goes to Google's terms and conditions. And then I've got 2 questions. I agree to the terms. Yep. That'll let me go on. Or I do not agree. If I do not agree, it takes me out to that blank page where I just put a message out there saying, hey, contact our office then. Maybe you really don't want to file a petition online. If they say, yep, I agree to the terms, then it takes them to my file a petition page. And really all this is it's attaching a document. So when I'm attaching a document, I've got a couple of fields that are available to me in that snap-in. If you guys, anyone, let's see, do we have people that are used to the old filing cabinet with the rows? So it's just a regular snap-in. All right, so if you think of this as a regular snap-in, I've got to have a document type, I've got to have a file, right? And then there's a notes field in there, and there's a date field, and all that. That's what I'm filling out right here. That's all we've exposed to the web. So when I select a file, I'm going to file a petition, and I can put my summary. And this is just going to be captured in my notes field for that document row. This date here goes to the date field on that document row. And then I can submit my request. There's the summary page, the summary of my payload. I could also have that emailed. The customer has the option to print that summary as well. All right, so with this one, let's go back. We'll review our configuration. So this one is automatically approved. It just works its way right through. It'll show up on my case. So while I'm waiting for the queue manager to chunk that, we're going to look at how I constructed these pages, okay? And then we'll go and we'll look at the case.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you have an active case, but an attorney has not filed a notice of appearance yet, so this court does not know that they're associated with that case. And they log in and want to file a notice of appearance through the system, and they're not associated with that case. How would they do that?
That would be a different request type.
Okay.
And it couldn't be a case-specific, right? Because in order for it to be case-specific, they would need to be involved in the case.
Right. Once the court associates them with that case, then it would show up in their queue, or whatever you call it, that
yes.
list of cases.
Yes, exactly. So, great question. It's a different request type here.
Okay.
But Jeremy can show you that, or I can show you how.
Another question. I noticed when you put in date, it was signed, you put in a future date.
Yeah.
It, to me, doesn't make sense that you could have you're submitting a document and saying that it was signed. How could it already be signed and you're saying it was signed in the future?
Very astute. Very astute. I'm glad you caught that. So you want to prompt the user, right?
Right.
And make sure that they're reading what's in there. So JusticeWeb's not going to stop them from putting in a date in the future or a date in the past or today's date, right? And so that's where maybe we want to use the queue. And that's what we're going to look at next with the petition. Is maybe we want to look and stop things in the queue before it just comes into our system. Okay? So, great point.
Can you have validation on there? I mean, if if you're asking for a date that would either be today or previously, can you stop the submission and throw an error message at the user?
Currently, no.
Okay.
Nope, not in JusticeWeb. So, great question. All right, so the page configuration. How does this work? We have 3 pages: terms and conditions, upload, case petition, and a blank page. So for those, we set up different pages. Here's my, let's find terms and conditions. That was our first page. So these are all alphabetical in here, terms and conditions. This one, we add fields to our pages. And there are name fields, case fields, and miscellaneous fields. Miscellaneous fields aren't tied to anything in JusticeWeb. Okay, they will be added to the payload only. So I don't recommend that you use a lot of these. I use the label. This is a label, and I added some basic HTML to this. I got paragraph tags in there. I've got my ahref in there. It's what links to my terms and conditions. And this page, each page has a specific type. This one is a generic page. So then I've got my file petition. Petition. Maybe it's upload. Upload case petition. And this one, on this page, I used a case file object. Now the case file object, you can click on these, you can move these up and down. And this file object is like a row in that snap-in. So that one object has 4 fields that can be filled out for us. So I'm going to just delete this so we can look at this one. Now, this one has the document type. When you click on one of these specific elements, then you get the field properties. So I select from my documents what type of document they'll be uploading, right? So when I look in JusticeWeb, we're going to go in, we'll see this. It was uploaded as a petition. The other things I've got is I've got a notes field, and I can change the title of this. It comes in, I guess we could add that and I'll show you the difference. So when it comes in, see I labeled this one select a petition. This one says file, case file date. I changed that to select the date of the petition was signed. You can move those elements around. So that's what I did. And then we got the notes field, and I relabeled that. And then we have a case file status. And with the case file status, that's your document status, right? And with this document status, I've got it set to document pending. And I don't have it visible. That's why it didn't show up on the form. Okay, so you can make elements hidden or visible. So if I didn't want them to select a date, I would uncheck the visible. This one actually makes it required. And I would uncheck so it's not trying to link it up with anything in the database. Okay? Then the last page that I was using is my blank page, my favorite. This thing.
Let me ask you a question. If you took out the date, didn't allow them to put it in, on their summary that they got back, could it be configured so that they would have a report about when they submitted it? So in other words, it would show the time and date that they actually hit send.
So for the customer or in your system?
The customer.
You could send them an email, yep,
Oh,
and
so
then they would have the date stamp when the email was sent.
So that summary we saw earlier where you put the date signed, if that was replaced with date submitted, or if it wasn't there at all, the summary itself couldn't print back to them
Right.
and tell them the date. It couldn't pull that out of the system and put it in there.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
And you can't default that date either,
Okay.
unfortunately. So blank page, simply just blank page. Okay, those are those 3 pages that we configured for that one request. Okay, so let's go into JusticeWeb and see what happened in JusticeWeb. So we just submitted our petition here, and in JusticeWeb, if we go out, so I'm using Sierra Mist as my person. He's got one case, the bear wrestling, exploiting a bear. Can you believe that? All right, so here's the case. Let's refresh that case because I already had it open. We'll go out to the filing cabinet. And in the filing cabinet now, there's my payload and there's my petition. So that petition, let's see if we can do the preview. No preview available. That's fantastic. There we go. There's my petition, right? It comes in. The date that I set, there's the document pending for the status. There's the notes that I typed in. And the date field gets set here. Okay, so that's how that translates. JustWeb, of course, puts its own timestamp on there, the date it was created or accepted into the system. All right. So now let's look at file and extension. File and extension, this is a single page in the workflow, so you can make these very simple. This one goes into the queue. And for this, let's take off our fees. All right. So we'll take those fees off. Now let's look at our page, file and extension page. This one is very similar to our petition, right? But with this one, instead of selecting the petition as my document, I've got an extension. If I select multiple documents and tell somebody that they can choose which type of document they're uploading, it changes from just a single field to a drop-down. But for this, we're just going to keep it as an extension. There's my date. This says select the end date of the extension and summarize why the extension is needed. So I just changed those labels a little bit. On my status, I don't have a status coming in on this one. Okay, so there's what the page looks like. So in JusticeWeb, to see how that works, we come out, let's refresh this guy. So we can click the file and extension. This one doesn't take me to a terms and conditions page. It just takes me right to where I can upload the file. Okay, so a lot of times if you've got something that's just internal to your organization maybe, you don't need a terms and conditions. So with this one, we select the file. There's my extension. We select the date of the extension. So we need it extended out to, let's get this month. Maybe that's described in your document. You would want to work through your workflow and then summarize the text. Okay, so now we submit the request. Now, the first time we were able to go directly to our case, right? Because we didn't stop it in our queue. With this request, we have this request configured that our default status is queued. Okay? So now we're going to get a chance to go in and see what the payload looks like. So to find that queue, we go into our JusticeWeb administration. I'm just going to go back one step, which takes us to this screen here, and we've got a request queue right up at the top. Anybody that submitted for an account in JusticeWeb, you're also in here and not in the group. But here's our file and extension. For Sierra Mist, there's my case, so if I need to open that up, I can. Here's my payload. This is what it looks like. So in here we got this little button. We can click on that, pulls up the XML, and formats whatever we filled out on that form shows up in our payload. If there are multiple elements that are captured on multiple pages, each of those has its own little section in here. So there's the title of my document, the date that I selected, and what I typed in. And all of that can be included in the email. So those elements are picked up. Now, there's a couple of other things in here. So we have the approval document. This will come in as a JusticeWeb payload document type. That payload right there will be stored as well as the file. If there was an amount that needed to be paid, it would tell us that they actually paid as well. Okay? So that's what's here. Now, to move things along out of the queue, we need to be able to set that to approved. Once it's approved, that's the queue for the queue manager to say, pull that document, move it onto the case. This is where you can actually review the contents of the document. Okay? From the queue, you can review the payload only. So once that's approved, we got to wait for that queue manager to wake up, move that over to our case, and let's see how quickly that's moving. There is our extension. So now our extension's in there, and there's the payload. So we can access the payload, we can access the document. The document, same kind of thing as the petition. So here's our extension. There is no status, right? I didn't set a status on this one and hide it. I unchecked that. And where are my notes?
So at this point, it's not in JustWeb as a quote file document with the court at this point, right?
Correct.
Now, if somebody, say an attorney submits something and it's the wrong case, in other words, the pleading itself doesn't match up with the case they submitted it under, the clerk just rejects it and they get it back, or how does that work?
So the clerk can redirect that. So in the new filing cabinet, you go here to move to or copy to, and so you can move it to the right case or name.
Okay, yeah.
Or you could kick it back.
It.
Yep, you could reject it back to the attorney and tell them, hey, wrong case.
Okay.
And we'll actually, I'll show you some examples of that, but I was going to save that for filing an actual case. But it's similar concept. Yep, no, that's great. Okay, so there's file a petition, file an extension. We can upload documents. Other things we can do is we can expose things, so you can add a case note or a charge. Let's look at some of those elements that you can add. So if we go back, this is where we've been working, is right here in the request management. Okay, so request management is where we've been working. There's my file a petition and file an extension. Here's add a case note. Now, the trick is that with case-specific requests, we can hook those up to permissions. Since we know what your involvement is on a case, we can restrict or allow what will be shown. So for this one, file an extension as an attorney, a defense attorney, or a plaintiff, or a prosecuting attorney, I can file a petition, or file an extension. File a petition, same kind of a thing. I've got different people who, or different involvements that can file a petition. Add a case note. I've locked that down to people that work internal and the attorneys again. So if I want to expose that to my plaintiff, that's how, detective, plaintiff, that's how I'm involved in the case, right? As a plaintiff. Then I simply check that box and now add a case note shows up for me. So each of these requests can have different involvements. They will be exposed to different involvements. Change case status, public download, attorney download, we're going to look at those. Okay, so add a case note. And I added my plaintiff, allowed them to see that. So now when I F5 out here on the web, there's my add a case note. Okay? So any of the case elements we can add as a link or as a request underneath that case. If we look at that add a case note, we go to our request types. We can look through here and we've got under, change this, I'm going to filter, you guys use that filter. Add a case note. There's a single page on this and it is simply add a court note. So if we look at the page, we can go add a court note. This one, what have I done here? So add a case note, I added a single field, which is, under the case fields, a note. And then I changed the title up here. That's all I've done. And the note, see how I get this little exclamation? That means that I need to set a field property. The field property is a note type. Right? To save a note on a case, you must select a type. That's what it's saying. Hey, you got to select a type. What I did up above is I selected multiple types. So it turns into a drop-down. Okay, so I'm going to delete this guy. Let's look at what I've got. So a note type, and I said you can either have general case notes or a court note type is all you can select to enter. And then you type in the note. So how does that translate into JusticeWeb? Add a case note. There's the two options that I had selected, whichever one they select. So if I go general case note, I can submit the request. There was the payload. So if we go back to JusticeWeb, we look at add a case note. This one is automatically approved. There is no queuing at all for this. So I can go to my case and the other tab, notes, and refresh. And the queue just automatically, everything goes through. There's my case note. It comes in as a general case note type. Okay, so those elements, each of those types that we can add to a page just equate to a row in that snap-in. Does that make sense? All right. So the next concept we're going to move on to. So we can have a simple page. We can add multiple pages to our requests so they can be more advanced. We've got 3 pages is the most we've looked at so far. So the next concept I want to move on to is the payments part of that. How does that equate? And we're going to stick right here with the files, and then we're going to move on to how do I file a new case in JusticeWeb. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is add the payments. To add the payments, we go back to our requests. That is, the money part is attached right in line with the row. So on file an extension, maybe if someone wants an extension on their case, we're going to charge them $75. So what we've got to do is hook it up to a non-collectible financial type. So this means in System Administration Code Tables, Financials, non-collectible financial types, you got to have some things set up. And I went in and I set up 4 of them. So I'm going to charge them, I'm going to have this come in as a filing fee. I'm going to charge them $75, and I've got a couple of other things that I can add on to there. Convenience fees, credit card fees, shipping fees, state tax fees. Right now, filing fee, $75. Right now, we're going to just go for the $75. So once I attach that to this request, then when I go back to JusticeWeb and refresh out there on the web, now it says to file an extension is $75. Now this, down here at the bottom, it shows the summary of how much you've got to pay. That little bit right there attaches itself to the request page, so the section down at the bottom that allows the submit. Okay? That has the submit on it. So now when I file an extension, it will not allow me to upload that file until I've paid. And this takes me out to my payment processor. Now, if you're going to collect credit card information, do you need to be PCI compliant?
I would say yes.
Yes. If you're going to collect credit card information, you need to be PCI compliant. Is that expensive?
It's a process.
Is that time consuming? There's a lot of requirements for that, right? So you or Nudon would need to be PCI compliant. For this, what we've done is we've teamed up with a credit card processor. They're PCI compliant. And what we did right there when we said pay and submit is we took you out to a payment processor site. They are PCI compliant. We do not store credit card information anywhere in JustWare. Okay? So to use payments in JusticeWeb, you do not have to be PCI compliant. And we'll look more at the payments in our next class. Okay, so I'm not going to work through that right now, but transfers are $75 that we owe. Goes through there. All right. So some other things that we can do with these is we can add additional fees on with those. And those are configured in the JusticeWeb System Administration in the fee configuration area. Magically. I love how they name this stuff. All right, so in here you can set things up, and what I've got is I've got a code, a description, a percentage or an amount. So here I put credit card fee 3, and then in the code type I say it's a percent of the subtotal. I've got a $2 flat amount, so instead of a percentage, it's a dollar amount, right? For convenience fee, shipping fee, $5 flat amount. And then I've got a master code that's got 3 codes in there, so it can be shipping, handling, other, or tax. So then I've got my state tax, 6% of the total. So my credit card fee is the subtotal, my state tax is of the total. So now, on top of the $75 fee, maybe I want to add the convenience fee. Maybe I want to add my credit card fee or the state tax. So to set that up, we go back into our request management, and now on that extension, we can select those types. Once they're set up, then we can add our state tax, convenience fee, and credit card fee. So convenience fee was $2. Credit card was 3% of the subtotal, and my state tax was 6% of the total, right? So let's save that, and now we'll go back to JusticeWeb, refresh our screen here, and hit our payload. So now we have the $75. The credit card fee gets tacked on. The convenience fee gets tacked on. Once we have our subtotal, then the tax. Okay, so each of those master codes determines how that money is attached. If we were to pay and submit, this money will show up, and actually we'll do that. Which time we got? That money will show up on my case in the non-collectible financials. And we'll look more at the financials in the next class. Yes. Okay, so here on the non-collectible financials tab. Okay, so let's move on. We ready to move on to filing an actual case. So that's the next concept. We can get more complex with this. So when we're looking at filing an actual case, now we're talking about this code type of 5, insert case request. We're going to start with the basics. And we're going to look at filing a complaint. Filing a complaint has a single page in it. Now, in order to insert a case through JusticeWeb, you must meet the same constraints as in JustWhere. In JustWhere, there are 6 pieces of required information in order to save a case. 6 pieces of required information. What are those 6 pieces of required information in order to save a case in JustWhere?
Case type, status, defendant.
Okay, case type, case status, defendant or PIP, right? Who knows the other ones?
We're trying to decide if we would use this.
Okay,
But, okay.
let me show you so you can make that.
Okay. So, okay.
So case type, status,
Case involvement?
case, so primary involved party, agency add by,
Oh.
status date, and receive date, right?
Yeah.
So JusticeWeb's going to take care of the agency add by, the receive date, and the status date when you accept that into the system. Okay, those get defaulted in. So you are responsible for making sure that you got a case type, a case status, and a primary involved party. Okay? Or you're going to get a yellow message down here saying, hey, you haven't met the requirements. So this page then must meet those requirements. And it can be this simple. So let's look at that page, file a complaint. So we're going to go to file a complaint. This page is a name. I'm going to change that to a user page. I'll show you the difference. We've got a user information page and a name page. Okay, but in order to insert a PIP, in order to insert into the involved party snap-in, I must have a user information or a name page. So for this one, instead of using a generic page like we've been using, I've got a name or a user information. This will be a user information page. On here, I've got hidden, so it's not visible, but it is required, a case type. And I specified that type as a complaint. I've got my status hidden and required, and my involved type. And it must be a PIP type. And it must be required. Then I've added a label. There's my last name, first name, date of birth, contact phone. Down below, I've added a charge. So for my fields, I added a charge. And I selected complaint as my charge. Then I am exposing other elements from my charge snap-in. So I'm asking them to fill in the offense or the occurred date, the time. I'm not asking for the end date and time. I'm not asking for the charge number. JustWhere will assign that automatically for me. And then I have notes 1 and notes 2 that they'll type information in, and I'm not requiring them to add the other information. Okay? So that's what my page looks like. So when we access that from JusticeWeb, file a complaint, it's going to pull up that one page. Case type, status, involved type, those are all hidden, but they are required. They're being captured in the payload. This one, doggone, I didn't... this one is set up as a user information page. What that does is it goes out and it sees who's logged into JusticeWeb. And it pulls that information from their name record in and populates your form for you. Okay? So for this one, Sierra Mist information gets pulled in. I haven't set a date yet, so we can capture that date. We've got an address down here, so if I type this in, it will update my name record in JustWeb. Down below, it's going to also add my charge to that case that I'm now creating, this complaint. If I specify an occurred date, so on the 10th, and now in here I'm showing that you can add HTML to your titles. So here I've got a list item, an unordered list, UL, where you can type that in. And then provides them an option to provide detail, information, describe your desired resolution to the issue, and doggone it, I don't have a submit request activated on there. So let's go back to our page configuration, allow submit, take this off, get that set up in the last class. All right, so let's cancel this guy. I've got that submit complaint. So we access that. We'll select our date, 45, type in an address. Okay, then we got our complaint. We can set the date. We can put our details in and then submit the request. So for this one is set up to go into our queue. Okay, so we'll go in and we'll look at what that looks like in the queue. So to find the queue, we're in our JusticeWeb administration area, the request queue. There's our file a complaint from Sierra Mist. We don't have a case created at this time. We can look at the payload. The payload now is going to show what was filled in. There's our case type and status, involved type. The last name, there's our address. That's going to be updated on their name information. And then just what I filled in on the form. This one we're not charging for, so there's no payment information. So I go over to the queue. I change that to approved. And I can save. Once I save that, then Sierra Mist is going to be involved in that case. So when the queue manager wakes up, we'll be able to refresh here. It'll show us that there's our complaint. They were involved as the submitted by, that's their involvement type. And it's pending review for the complaint. So I can click on that. It opens up my case here. I can also go to JusticeWeb, find that case out there. And now I can interact with that case, right? I can look at the extension, the note, the petition that show up on that request. So let's look at what happens when I created that case. So for this complaint, I've got my auto agency numbers going in there, right? So I've got 2 agency numbers that show up. My charge comes in as a complaint. It involves Sierra Mist as a charge involvement. There's my occurred date that I selected. And that's all that I had coming in on that case. Other elements that we can add on a case would be our notes, our attributes. We can add events and tasks. We can add other charges. We can add files to that. And we're going to look at how that works. For this one, let's see. I don't have financial setup on this one. You can also tie in business rules that would automatically add obligations on here. Okay, it could add your fine and fee schedule based on the information coming in. So that's how that looks. So if we wanted to make this more complex, we could add other pages to that payload. So let's go back to our request management and find our complaint. 1 page. And what if I wanted to upload a document along with this complaint? Maybe I've got a police document or something. What I've got is, under my file complaint, I've already created a page that we can upload a file. And the only thing that I've got is you got to attach a file, and then describe the document that you are uploading, right? And this page is just a generic page. So since I've already met the requirements for JustWeb, for a case in JustWeb, I can just add a second page, file a complaint document. With this one, I'm going to allow the submit after, so I'm going to require that they upload one document and one document only, one document only. So my next page is 2, right? Because this is page 2. So when I save that, I go back to JusticeWeb, and magically, I just change this file a complaint. Now look, my date of birth shows up for me. My address shows up for me. That's now on my name record. I can specify the date that this of the occurrence, and I can put my details. Now I've got the next button activated. So I go next. There's my file. I can select my file. I've got my supporting documentation, and I can describe and now I can submit the request. Okay? This is also going to go into the queue. So if we go back and we look at our queue, there's my file a complaint. Here's the payload. Now that I have 2 pages, I've got 2 sections in the payload. The first section is just like we saw before. Now we just added that document part to that payload. So when we approve this one, then when we look at the case, it will also have a document on it. So here's my Sierra Mist. There's the date of birth. My contact information got updated, right, from what I put in JusticeWeb. I'm going to refresh there. Here's my case involvements. Now we have another complaint. It's got a new court number on it, so we know that's our new one. This one will be set up very similar, so we'll have the same involvement, same case type, same status. JusticeWeb fills in the agency ad by and the other information, but this time we're going to have the supporting document filing cabinet. And this one's got my notes right there in the notes section. Okay, so those elements that we're exposing on the web, you're just turning that data entry over to somebody else. So you want to describe what you're trying to capture and help them through that process.
When you enter a person's name or charges of that, you know, when you're entering a case in JustWeb, you do a search to see if the name's already in the system. Is that built into JustWeb when you're submitting a case somehow?
So the search is not, but it will do a level 1 or a level 2 name match.
Okay.
So if you're requiring that information, then JusticeWeb will match up with that individual.
Okay, and that individual is there, it uses that name record.
Yep, otherwise it will create a new one.
Okay, and then with charges, if you're asking them to enter a charge, does it interact at all with your statute table at all? Or is
Yes, it does.
Freeform, okay.
Yep, so, and you actually select that. So let's look at a couple of these things. If we go back to our request management, and now on this complaint, file a complaint document, file a complaint, enter a document. Let's look at those pages. So here, file a complaint. There's our file a complaint. If we change this from a user information to a name page, now it's saying, well, it's not the person logged into JusticeWeb. We're going to have you enter a new person. And if we can match on the name, we'll match on the name. If we can't, then we'll add a new name record. So we change that simple change right there. We'll see how that looks. And then when we're looking at our charges, I select that specific charge from the back end. I don't let the customer, I don't let the user select that charge. I predefine that. And this search ties into your statute table. So if I wanted to change that from a complaint to some sort of a DWI, then it's searching in JustWeb. Trafficking lottery tickets. Man, those, get them out of Utah. Get them out. Can't have them in Utah.
So so what you've done is you've changed the form that somebody's coming in to log in trafficking a lottery ticket.
Correct.
So you set it as to what charge is in it. So if you wanted them to be able to send you assault, OUI, theft, you have to have 3 different pages. Because they.
We'll actually look at that. So I've got another example already set up
Sorry.
for a civil case.
Okay.
And we'll look at, it has 3 charges on it.
Okay.
So great, you're thinking ahead. This is great. So let's look at this change now, and we'll illustrate the difference of, now it's not a complaint, right? And we have a user, a name page rather than a user information page. So in JusticeWeb now, when we file a complaint, instead of it loading my information, I've got to type that in. Okay, so it doesn't type in Sierra Miss. So I would type that in. I could type in Pepper, Doctor. So it's a different person, right? Different date of birth. Address. It'll actually create a name record for me now. It's trafficking lottery tickets instead of a complaint. Still has my document, so I can get a supporting document. I can submit that request. Okay, so we can also add money to these. So to file a complaint, that's $5. So to do that, we go to JusticeWeb. On our request type configuration, we'll change this to JusticeWeb filing fee, $5. And we're not going to add any online fees to that. So if we do this, what page will I be shown my total amount? Which page will it say, hey, you need to pay and submit on? First page or second? Page 2, that's where the amount shows up. Okay, it shows up on the page that you allow submit. All right. So with this one, when it goes into the queue, we would be shown that, hey, they had to pay $5, right? So it uses the other fields in the queue. Let's move on to filing a civil case and a traffic case. I've got a couple of things set up on this. Okay? Business rules. So here we go. Actually, you know what we're going to do? Let's do our messages first. So on this file complaint, I'm going to take this back to a one-page workflow. So I simply remove page 2. I take the next page off. I allow submit. I'm going to go to my page configuration. On my page, I'm going to make that a user information page because I don't want to have to fill out my information. And now when I work through this workflow, let's look at how we can send a specific message to someone. So see the difference between a user information and a name page? I like those user information pages. We're going to look at how we can use that in other things. We still have $5 down on it. All right, we're going to, no, we're not. I'm going to take that $5 off. I do not want to go through payment processing. All right, so to take that money off, we simply remove the amounts, save, and now we'll run through our workflow, and the money will be gone. All right, so with this one, the scenario is we want to send a generic, maybe they submitted the wrong information. Maybe it's incomplete. We didn't get enough information. So when our request comes through, it goes into our queue. In that queue, we're able to review the information that has been submitted. So there's my file complaint. It comes in. I can look at the payload. Now, if I want to send a specific message, and I called this out in the documentation I showed you earlier, how we do this. If I want to send them a message, I can send them a message, just a canned message saying not enough information, or inaccurate information, or you used the wrong request. So this is the wrong stuff. The way that works is we set up a notification template. And then in our request management, we have notifications that can be set up. These notifications go to the logged in user only. So if you want to send an email to an attorney, court staff, or other, you do that through a business rule. These notifications go to the logged in person only. But what I've got here is I've got file a complaint. So notification template. Complaint approved. Your complaint submission was received when it's queued. The complaint was approved for the 3-page. Here's the incorrect submission on file complaint number 1. and it will send this template when the status is changed to inaccurate information. It will send not enough information when we change the status to not enough information. And I actually show you those templates in that documentation. I'm not going to go through and do that now. So we can see what those look like when we go to our queue and we change the status. Instead of to approved, we change that to not enough information and save. That's going to not pull that case in, into JustWeb. It's going to kick it out. It never made it to JustWeb. And it's going to send that individual a message saying, hey, you didn't provide enough information. So we'll go right up here to my training conference and look at that. I got 5 emails. I got this one saying, hey, your complaint was received. Thanks for taking time to submit your complaint. We take these submissions very seriously, and we'll review your submission as quickly as possible. You will receive a notification once you have had a chance to review the information you supplied. In the meantime, if you have questions or need to chat with somebody, please call us at our office. Sincerely, your dedicated JusticeWeb team. Once it's been reviewed, right, and approved, and I change that status to approved, we send off another email. Hey, your complaint has been reviewed and progressing to the next stage. We've assigned Investigator Brown to contact you. Okay, let him know. And we are going to contact you at the address you provided. So I captured that information from my form, and it's now in my email notification. Thanks again, your dedicated JusticeWeb team. So we got another one that's been received. Here's the one that says, I'm sorry, you did not provide enough information. I didn't have to type that up. My court staff didn't have to type that up. It's all determined from that status that I set in the queue.
If somebody files something with the court, it's then accepted. Assume for a moment the prosecutor's on JustWeb also, and the defense attorney filing something with the court. Could if the system wanted to have the service on the prosecutor be at the same time as filing with the court, would that be a business rule?
Business rule.
Okay.
Yep. And we are getting to the point that we want to look at some business rules, how those fire off. Okay, so the case gets created, we can have different things fire off. So let's do that. So we can do that with the complaint. So once the complaint's in there, we've got our complaint. We can, as it progresses through, we may have a sentence, we may have financials that are added. So we may have a filing fee here that we want our individual to pay. Once that's there, we can change our status on the case. And I have this little business rule that says, hey, Sierra Mist, we're waiting for payment on your case so that it can progress. Okay? So I change that status from case to case waiting for payment. In my business rules, I've got a waiting for payment. I downloaded that junk to you now. Waiting for payment. Business rule. This is very simple. What it does is it says, hey, when you change your status, your case status, to waiting for payment, then get the individual, your PIP, that owes the money, and send them a notification. And I specified a notification template that said, hey, I'm waiting for payment. Okay, so that will go out to my individual and say, hey, Sierra Mist, we're waiting for payment on this case. Please log in here. And I even provided the URL. They just click on it, sign in, and they can pay for that case. Okay, pretty slick?
Very slick.
So takes all that processing off of your clerks, puts it on the individual, on your defendant. All right, so a couple other things that we've done. So let's run through this. I've got file a civil case. So this one goes back to, hey, how do I expose multiple charges? With this one, my first page sets up my case type and status, and then it allows me to select different charges. And I can select multiple charges in this instance. Okay, so I can say, oh, possession of a cap gun. You cannot have that on public property. Bear wrestling or playing with dominoes on Sunday. Good night. Welcome to Utah, folks. All right, so I'm filing for myself. Now I've got the difference. I've got two different things. Filing for somebody else is a name page. That means you type that information in, JustWeb's going to capture that, right? Or I can file for myself. If I file for myself, then it takes me to that page where I can update that information. If I were to change this address, 999 Main Street, that's going to, when I accept this payload in JustWeb, it will update my address for me. Okay? This is the only place you can do that, is in an insert case request. Then I've got some options. Do you want to upload a file? Sure, I want to upload a file. I'll upload my supporting document. This one makes use of loops. So once I do that, it takes me back and says, oh, what would you like to do? Oh, I'd like to upload another document. And I can upload my, and I'm just going to choose my extension document. What else would you, well, I'd like to add some representation. I'm being represented by Jones and Barney. Okay, and then you can type in the bar number if you know. You can type in their email, address. We've got to type in an address. There is some validation on this, so if I don't fill out a proper zip code, but that's kind of minor. Got to have a phone number, so we got to have a way to contact those attorneys. Oh, what would you like to do? Well, I'd like to add other representation. Maybe I got multiple attorneys in there. Or maybe I'd like to just add a case note or text to the case, describe what's going on, right? Or maybe I've got a document that I need to, that somebody wrote up for me. Maybe it's a complaint, maybe it's something from the police department or whatever, and I want to type that details up for me. So I'm allowing them to type in my notes. And this, again, is just using that same notes page we were looking at before. So this is just general case notes. And each of these pages acts as a record or a row in that specific snap-in. So now if I type in a court notes, I'm going to have 2 notes rows in my case. When I'm done, I click next. And there's my submit request. Now, my payload shows each of those pages. I click OK. With this one, it's not passing through the queue. I don't believe, so we're refreshing here. It is not in the queue. It will go directly into JustWeb. Sierra Mist was my person, so I can go to Sierra Mist. Now watch, on my contact information when I refresh, I updated my address, right? Keeping that current. And I actually just added a new address. Welcome to 510, folks. Added a new address for me with the activation date set as well. My case involvements, playing dominoes on Sunday. I'm involved as a plaintiff, so I can go in, I can review this case. Now, when I look at the case, I'm going to get my default case involvements, right? Come through. I also hooked up a business rule to this one. So there's my agency numbers. My charges, both charges get added on there. I get added to both of those charges. My other tab, there's my general case notes and my case notes. They came in with different types. My filing cabinet, there's my supporting documents that I uploaded. And with this one, I have a business rule that says when I file a civil case, let's see, right here. Add obligations to a civil case. It's 2 steps. When I have a case that comes in, civil pending review, which is what I set up in my workflow, then add a filing fee to it. Pretty simple. Easy. And I'm just monitoring my case information snap-in when it comes through the API. So only in the API. This isn't going to automatically add if one of my court staff adds it, because I want people using the web to do that. So now that that's on there, I can look at my case, and there's my financial. Filing fee, $75, just automatically puts that in. In the next class, we're going to look at how you can pay a ticket online, dispo your case, and close it with the business rule. Yep, so somebody's flying through, traffic ticket, business rule, it'll go through, it'll dispo that traffic charge, and close your case. once they pay. Okay? So some pretty cool things that you can team up with your JusticeWeb stuff. All right. Another one that I got set up out here is our traffic ticket. Filing a traffic ticket. This one, single page. It's a user information page, so it just takes whoever's logged in. So you'd probably not do that. You do a name page. They can type in citation number. So this would be the police officer number. There's the charges that get added. So it makes it very simple. Maybe you want your police officers to start filing in your court using JusticeWeb. That's what they're doing here in Cache County. Gives me the payload. That information then would show up. Let's do a refresh out here in JusticeWeb. We haven't done that for a little bit. So now we're speeding on a snowmobile. That's Sierra Mist. He is getting in all kinds of trouble. So here's my new case. What I've done with that one is I set up a new business rule that's looking for traffic tickets. And when traffic tickets are added, so I've got a traffic ticket that comes through as open. So this one just has a different case status, right? It's going to add a fine, court costs, and defensive driving class that needs to happen for that traffic ticket. Okay, so if we were to go to Sierra Mist, we refresh. Now we're going to have that speeding on a snowmobile case. When we go out to the speeding on a snowmobile case, now we're going to see the data that I entered on this one. I don't have notes, I don't have documents, I just have my agencies and involved parties. Now I've got my law number that shows up along with the other numbers. My charges, I've got the 2 charges on there. I didn't add any other information, but I could. And when I look at my financials, now I've got 3 fines on there. Now I can team that up with my other business rule that says, hey, we're waiting for your payment. Please log into JusticeWeb and pay your traffic fines. Right? I could do the same thing on the civil case. Hey, we're just waiting for your payment. Okay? So that is filing. What our objective was, learn how to set up eFiling in JusticeWeb. Learn how to create and order pages. Let's look at that ordering pages really quick. Receive case submissions in JustWare. How do the data elements translate into JustWare? Learn how to set up different payment options. Set up notifications and permissions. So the page ordering, we looked at that briefly. Let's just look at that one. File a complaint, the 9-page one. And I'll show you some of the basic concepts there. And then we'll cut out of here. So request management is where we were looking. For this one, we've got our file a civil case. Here we go. File a civil case. 9 pages. So with this one, we've got page 1. Page 1 is file a civil case. That takes care of my case type, status, and adds my charges to it. The next one, I've got file for myself or filing for somebody else. So page 1 goes to page 2, and I have 2 page 2s. That's why I had those 2 options, file for myself or file for somebody else. The next page we go to is if we file for someone else, then I want to know who you are. So page 3, or page 2 goes to page 3. This page 2 goes to page 3. If I'm filing for myself, then just take me to the options where I can upload a document. Go to page 4. See how that workflow works? So page 3 is, what's your involvement? After you're done adding your involvement, go to page 4. Page 4 is that blank page where then I had 4 different options. I'm finished, add a note, add a document, or add other representation. Once you go to those pages, it just takes you back to page 4. So blank page goes to page 5. Those are all page 5s. That's why those 4 options show up for me on that one page. And then they just take me back to the other one. Just creates a loop. And then I created this page here, blank page, and that's the only one you can submit on. Okay. I've also seen that change to, you can just submit from right there. You can go next or submit. Okay, but I do like taking them out. Now, if I were to add and say, hey, to file a civil case, a civil matter, online, and I want to charge $75 for that filing, for you to create that case for me in JusticeWeb, $75 for you to work for me, which page would the user be shown the Pay and Submit button?
And who's filing it?
Doesn't matter. In this workflow, which page would the Pay and Submit button be activated?
Still the last page?
The last page? It's always the one with the Allow Submit. Okay, so it would be this page. If we change that, Pay and Submit would be right there. Okay, so it's whichever one the Allow Submit checkboxes. You will find that in the help guide. If there's any questions, read that help manual. It rocks. Okay, so we're at the end of our time. Are there any other questions? Sure.
This is just kind of about the reverse. This is all receiving, so it's kind of like e-receiving. But is there like plans to do to use JusticeWeb to send electronic documents to the courts or something, or is that what e-courts is?
eCourt is a sister product to JusticeWeb, so it's a case management system. So eCourt would not work for that. Sending documents electronically to are they on your JusticeWeb system?
They wouldn't.
They're not on your JusticeWeb systems.
They're out looking for it. I'm just wondering if there's any thought of coming to kind of inverting the process where you consume but you also provide documentation out. So like if we, in my office, the prosecutor's office, we provide requests for discovery to defense attorneys.
Sure.
Because we need to know what they have for evidence as well. So, would we be able to send from a generated document to them? I'm just trying to think if there's like a reverse functionality.
You betcha. And look at this. So when we go to our case, and let's see if I got a file in the filing cabinet. This supporting document, if I needed to expose that to the web, I hook this up to the little business rule. And it says, hey, document's been reviewed, send it to the attorney. So when I save that, what happens is, if my involvement on the case is an attorney, let's see.
And by attorney, do you mean internal to your JusticeWeb or an attorney with a name record that has an email address?
It's got to be, so it's the involvement type here. I'm exposing that to a specific request. And let's do this with my pepper. I bet I wanted the other Dr. Pepper. That's all right. All right, so we got this Dr. Pepper. So if Dr. Pepper is the attorney, and that is the guy that's hooked up to my JusticeWeb request, let's make that change. Then when I log into JusticeWeb, we can publish those specific documents to attorneys. So on this one, I've got my Sierra Master complaint, there's a download, and there is that document. And with this one, I'm charging them $2 to access that document, but you can make that free.
So the defense attorney, when they log into their account and you pull up discovery that they have available to them, they would get their notifications that they had responses from us.
Yes.
So as long as they're logging in, if they have an account on JusticeWeb, then they can receive stuff on JusticeWeb. Now, do you do it on an agency level too, or does it has to be a name?
It's a name right now. Yep.
Which you could do kind of.
And we have another mechanism to provide discovery, so you can make a zip file of documents from the filing cabinet and expose those out. This was just a single document that I hooked up to business rule as well.
Okay.
Great question. And what I've seen, so like Denver City Attorney's Office, I think they were here yesterday. So they're doing that. We built the e-discovery for them,
Right.
and so it works great for their process. It has an activation and an expiration date. And then what they've done is they charge for the initial discovery, but if somebody is like, oh, I lost it, now I need rediscovery, then they have a different payment amount. So it's like $15 for the initial discovery, and it's $5 if you need rediscovery. So they have different requests that just attach money to those.
I mean, we're in the, we have the contract to sign for JusticeWeb. We're just, every state does things differently, and we don't have a centralized public defender's office. It's kind of a free-for-all situation. So I'm just trying to explore the availabilities to make it kind of fit what we're required to do by the court. It's not like we get to change the process. They make us, we have to fit into that.
Yeah. So the thing you want to keep in mind if you're going to use JusticeWeb is you may need some additional reports, you may need some additional business rules, you may need some additional JDA. So keep that in mind as you move forward and make sure that you're attending the other classes, getting that training. We don't want to nickel and dime you, we don't want you to nickel and dime us, so you guys can do all this stuff. That's what I was showing you. If I can do it, you can do it. All right, thanks guys.